Bills Mafia, what's going on tonight? It's Thursday. We're talking Bills. We're talking Bengals. Let's get it. Bills Mafia, what is going on? Welcome to Buffalo Late Night. Happy Thursday. What a day. Today's been great. It's one day closer. This week has been really quite something in terms of things going on for the Buffalo Bills. But guys, we are here. It's Bengals week. Man, this is a big one. It's a big time matchup for our Buffalo Bills. Again, guys, welcome to this week's episode of Buffalo Late Night here on the Cover One Sports Network. I have a great show for you. I am so glad you've decided to join us. Again, I am your host, Thomas DeLaus. Hope you stay for a while. You can find me on Twitter at the Thomas DeLaus. Go ahead, hit me with a follow. I love interacting with a bunch of people, so feel free to hit me up. Again, thank you for tuning in tonight, or if you are listening on Spotify, happy Friday to you. You can find our show free on all social media and streaming platforms, including Spotify, YouTube, and or however you choose to pod. There's a lot of different opportunities out there. You can find us on all of them. If you are watching on Twitter right now, come join us on YouTube. It's way more fun in here. The water's warm. I promise I don't bite. We'll have a good old conversation. Got 3 really good guests tonight. You guys are going to love it. It's going to be a blast. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of everything that's going on, everything to do with the Bengals week, everything that you should expect. Also, want to make sure you hit that subscribe button on our YouTube page. Hit that notification button. It'll let you know every time one of our shows here at Cover One is live. Also, Super Chats are open for this and all Cover One shows, so make sure if you want to be heard, click that button. Let's hear you. Now, guys, we are officially in Bengals week, like I said. So make sure you are subscribed to Cover One, as well as all Cover One shows. Cover One Pass is the best for all Bills Mafia coverage. So make sure you're tapping in with us. Make sure you are joining us for all the best coverage this season. Guys, we got, like I said, we have some really good guests with us tonight. We have Joe Derosa. We have Kevin Siracuse, and we have Adam Pensel. They're all going to be joining me at some point. They're all going to be trickling, and they've all got some stuff going on. So slowly but surely, they will be with us momentarily. Thanks, RJ. Appreciate you, brother. Linda, what's going on? How are you? Go Bills. I'm glad you guys have joined us tonight. I'm going to be going through a bunch of different stuff, but let's get into what happened this past week. Obviously, last Thursday, God, it feels like forever ago. It feels like the last time we had a Bills game. It's been a minute. But we played the Buccaneers, and let's kind of get into that matchup. Let's kind of get back into how that all happened. I'm going to go ahead and get this music off. But I'll tell you, I think, what happened with the Buccaneers-Bills game was really something. Because after the last couple games, kind of what happened with the Buffalo Bills and what happened with just really the prevailing issues, this was a game that was important for this team, right? This was a game that, for a lot of reasons, the Bills really needed to kind of get back to who they were, kind of get back to what made them successful for the last couple of years. And you saw Josh Allen, 31 of 40, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, that 1 interception, that was, it is what it is. It was kind of fluky. Obviously you had good old Antoine Winfield Jr. We should know Antoine Winfield. His dad played for the Buffalo Bills at one point, but got right in Josh's face. Obviously deflected the ball, went up in the air. Nothing he could do about that, unfortunately. But if you look at this game was truly a tale of a team that I think was coming back from a tough situation. A situation where if you look at the way the game was played against the Buccaneers, it was one that we really kind of needed to get back into the win column. You needed to straighten things out. And I think they did. I think that they focused on what was most important. They worked on the running game. They got Josh Allen going, obviously, with some easy to short passes, some dump offs. They got Dalton Kincaid involved. And guys, I know I'm not the only Bills fan, and quite frankly, not the only content creator that has talked about Dalton Kincaid. I mean, I was the one banging on the drum all preseason saying I was hoping he was going to be Rookie of the Year candidate. I don't think he is. Sam Laporta has been a monster, so is CJ Stroud. But what he did this past game, I think he kind of finally said, hello, America. That was kind of his coming out party, per se, and how he was able to kind of put himself on the map. Khalil Shakir, another one. Khalil Shakir had one of the highest pickup rates in all of fantasy football this week. He was monster for the Buffalo Bills. What those two were able to do, getting Gabe Davis involved. And I think the one thing that has to be said about this is because of what they were able to do with James Cook, Latavius Murray, and then on top of Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, and Gabriel Davis, it made them not rely on Stephon Diggs. And because of that, or maybe the fact that they were focused on Stephon Diggs, it opened up so much more of the passing game. They were truly able to kind of diversify what they weren't doing. And I think in some ways, if you look at the way this Bills offense has worked, and, there's been different games. Obviously, the first game of the season is the Jets. I think it was a tale of two very different teams, per se. You had the Buffalo Bills, who at moments were looking like an efficient offense, the offense that truly everybody wanted. You also had Josh Allen, who unfortunately just self-inflicting wounds that really killed the team. But then you have other games like the Miami Dolphins, where they were by far the most explosive team, not only that week, but, quite frankly, this entire season. What they did against the Dolphins was monumental. But then there's just been other really kind of strange occurrences. What you saw against the Giants, what you saw against, the second half of the Buccaneers was kind of a little shaky. There was some weird occurrences in their game plan. So in the Buccaneers game, in the first half, you saw what they could do when they had an efficient, meticulous, kind of concentrated offense where they were focused on doing what they do best. So that was really nice to see. You saw the defense kind of step up in moments. Really, really nice plays they got after Baker Mayfield. Though they didn't sack him, they were able to cause him to kind of not be as proficient, I would say. They took Mike Evans pretty much out of that game completely. Cade Otton was not nearly as effective. The only one that really was the one guy that you'd expect to be, right? And that was Rachaad White. Their running back was probably their best player. The guy has just been a monster in terms of short to intermediate catches. Chris Godwin was good, of course, I should say. But it was a matchup where it was very strange in a sense because there were two different teams that showed up. And I think finally the Bills reestablished themselves, which is important. We got one of the guys joining us tonight, so I'm going to bring him on before we get to the other two. He is the host of the Under Review podcast. My boy. I bring him on all the time because he saves my ass. It's Mr. Joe Derosa. Joe, what's going on, bro? What in the hell is this?
Ooh.
Okay, that's better. We're very small on the screen. Joe, yes. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on tonight's episode of Buffalo Late Night. I am excited to be here.
Good. Yeah, I am glad you are here. Look at that. Love Joe. Everybody loves Joe. Joe's so lovable.
Me too, Linda. Thank you.
So it's like I was saying, Joe, we were talking about the Buccaneers game. It's a game that I think, you and we had talked about it. It's a game that I think it was hard to really calculate what was going to happen, but finally it seemed as though there was a team that we anticipated to show up actually showed up.
Yeah, it was refreshing. I don't think it absolves the team, especially offensively, of some of the woes. Hi, Jessica. Of some of the woes that I think we've complained about with this team for the past few weeks. I still think that the offense has drives they need to finish. I still think that there are some play calling woes, not to an awful glaring degree, but they do exist. And then execution errors that still lingered. But all in all, it did feel like a very much needed step in the right direction and a win that you very desperately needed going into a mini bye with the opponent you're facing on Sunday.
For sure. Yeah, it's a tough matchup, but at the end of the day, I think the one thing the Bills were able to do is, unlike the last couple games prior, you knew the Buccaneers they had a potent offense. If things were rolling, you knew they could put points on the board. They finally showed up to an opponent, and they were the better team. It didn't seem like they played down. It seemed like they played up. They played to the level they were expected. So that was nice. But before I get any further into this, and we'll talk about what happened this week, let's go ahead. Let's hear from Greg Thompson. Let's hear from Aaron Quinn about what you can do with the Cover 1 pass.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
So you heard from them. Greg Thompson, Aaron Quinn, guys. It is our lifeblood. The Cover One Pass, what it is able to do, all the things that we're able to provide you, all the content. It truly makes our job that much easier. And just speaking about Cover One, we got another one of our guys here. There's two more joining. One of them is rolled in, and that is the video coordinator, the guy that, man, when you watch the film room, when you watch all the stuff with Anthony Prohaska, this is the guy that makes our lives so much easier. He's the one that chops up all 22, which seems like it's nothing. It's a pain in the neck. So Adam Pensel, that's our guy. What's up, bro?
What's up, guys? How we doing?
What's
Good.
up, man?
What is this? I have no idea what's going on with my layouts tonight.
StreamYard is messing with you tonight. It's playing a game on all of us.
There it is. Now I'm way up in the top, but it's okay. We're going to go with this. This is totally fine. Okay. Zach of all trades, thank you very much. If you want to throw like a comment or a question or anything you want to add in besides the hell yeah, Linval, Joseph Derosa, you can do that too.
So proud of that one.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I'm proud of that one. And I know Thomas loves when I laugh at my own jokes. I love laughing at my own jokes. So I'm very pleased. Thank you for noticing, Zach.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys haven't watched Joe, he likes to use his name in every possible way, and it's very good. He's very creative, very, very creative. So that being said, guys, this week was the trade deadline. A lot of stuff going on. There was obviously some much anticipated kind of drama. No one knew what was going to go on with the Buffalo Bills, if they were going to do anything for that matter. Lo and behold, Brandon Beane, being the guy he is, big baller Beane, they say, came in like a shadow in the night and decided to make a trade for Rasul Douglas. The Bills traded a third-round pick in 2023 for a fifth-round pick in 2024, and a fifth-round pick in 2024, and Rasul Douglas from the Green Bay Packers. Guys, what are your thoughts on the new addition of Rasul Douglas?
Adam, I'll let you rip first. All right. Well, I'm very excited by the addition, right? I mean, Dane Jackson, don't get me wrong, he's been good for them when they've needed him to be coming off the bench, but he's not the guy that's going to get you those really high end or regularly more explosive results, playing in that position that he is, especially across from a guy like Benford, who, by all accounts, he's having a great season, but, they're going to kind of pick on Dane Jackson a little bit more in that regard. And so, when they made the trade, one of the first things that I went and looked at was the, separation prevented charts that get floated around on Twitter quite often. And, Rasul Douglas, both in separation prevented and in target percentage, sits right in the same exact spot that Tre'Davious White was in before he went down for an injury. So it's pretty incredible that they're getting a guy. Now, obviously, he's coming into a completely different team, and, it's a similar scheme, but there are some differences. So, we'll see how it ends up playing out. But I'm really encouraged. I think that they have the opportunity here for a guy who is going to keep coverage a little bit tighter than what they're getting from Dane Jackson, which in turn is going to make the pass rush a little bit better. And more importantly, they're getting a guy who is a bit of a ball hawk, right? He's really come up with a lot of turnovers over the last 2 seasons. And, as our film crew at Cover One has pointed out, he is incredibly good at the point of attack, when the ball comes in. So I'm very, very excited about the move. And I think it's got the potential to pay huge dividends and have ripple effects across the entire defense, not just, in the secondary.
Yeah, I completely agree with Adam, and I know we're not allowed to be positive in the Bills community today, but I'm going to be positive anyways. So I love the move for a few reasons. One, it proved that Brandon Beane is going to make the move he needs to make if the team needs to win and needs a piece. And Absolutely. I never had any reason to doubt Brandon Beane's ability to do that or his desire to do that. We've seen trades in the past at positions that we felt like they needed. Kelvin Benjamin in 2017, I know not the greatest example. Nyheim Hines last year. Rasul Douglas, to me, fills what not only the fans wanted, but really what the team needed. And it wasn't just getting a cornerback. It was getting someone like Adam described as someone who's played in a zone heavy scheme, someone who's opportunistic and really is one of those ball hawking CBs that can read offenses really well and be instinctual. And McDermott really values that in this defense. You've seen it from many of the starters that he has personally drafted or signed over the years, but they have that mentality where they're able to read things off script or make plays based on what they're seeing, and our safeties have excelled at that. So adding Douglas to that room, to me, is so valuable because you're not only getting a position of need because you needed a starting established cornerback, but you're getting one that has the similar traits that you find in your safety room with guys like Hyde and Poyer, who are just intelligent veterans, and I think Douglas is going to fit in seamlessly. So I'm very encouraged, very excited to see how it pans out. And I think, although I don't foresee Sunday's game being anything more than like a handful of snaps where he's just feeling it out, I think he gets acclimated to the playbook quite quickly, and I think he's going to be big for this defense down the stretch.
Can I add
go ahead. Sorry.
One other point about this guy is I think that teams in 3rd and long and 4th and long better pray, because the way McDermott is now using Jordan Poyer low, in those dime packages, cutting underneath. You got a guy like Teron Johnson out there. Now you add Rasul Douglas. Like, good luck not, keeping the ball out of the Bills defenders' hands on those downs, because there's guys up and down the entire lineup that are known for being ball hawks and getting after the ball for these turnovers. So that's just a whole nother element that I think is being added, particularly in those pure passing downs.
I will say this before I kind of give my perspective. Buffalo Bills just announced Delmar Reed. If you guys don't know who Del Reed is, created 26 shirts, one of the originators of Bills Mafia. They just announced he is the Buffalo Bills Fan of the Year and will be in the running for Fan of the Year with 20 or 32 or 31 other NFL fans. So fantastic news, Del. If you've never met Del, amazing person, really, really good guy. Watch the video after the show, of course. But yeah, guys, I'll say in regards to what's going on with Rasul Douglas, I think, the Buffalo Bills are a team that is not devoid of any type of leadership. They're not devoid of talent per se on that side of the ball. But to get somebody that not only is scheme specific, is a unbelievable leader. I mean, that has been echoed from fans, from media personalities. I mean, everybody in the same, national and local, and just in general, the type of player. Like, I like to kind of, if you listen to what he said today, he had mentioned that nobody believed in him until he went to Green Bay, that they believed him. The coaches wanted him to excel. They wanted him to play how he liked to play. They wanted him to play loose, play free. it reminds me of Josh Allen in a sense, a guy that was a leader, but didn't have the easiest pathway, didn't have that direct route to success like a lot of NFL talent. He had to take the hard way. He was on 7 different teams. So for a guy like him, who is just the leader of men, I mean, he said today he is going to play with every ounce of his heart. That just tells you what kind of person they're getting. And it's important. And, when you got games like last year against the Bengals, those are the players you want. You want guys like that when it's tough, when it's hard to play, when emotions are at their lowest, you want leaders who can galvanize the rest of the team. And that's what a guy like Rasul Douglas can do. That's a guy that can uplift the entire organization, not only by his play, which obviously, like Adam said, falls in the same slot as Tre'Davious White, is literally ranked in the top 10 or top 13 of all cornerbacks in the NFL. He has 10 interceptions over 3 years, which is unbelievable in terms of stats. But on top of that, he's an unbelievable person. Those two things together coinciding are what you want out of an organization, because those are the guys that are going to lead you to the promised land. I think it's a great signing. Moving on, obviously, we also got Leonard Fournette and we got Linval Joseph. Adam, if you want to start, whoever you want to talk about both guys, feel free. What are your thoughts on the other two signings?
Well, let's start with Linval Joseph. When Daquan Jones went down earlier this year and the defense really started to begin to suffer, I saw it showing up in a lot of the numbers. And when I say suffer, I mean really suffer. This team, in the wake of losing Tre'Davious White, Daquan Jones, and Matt Milano, the defense dropped in those 3 weeks to, bottom 5. And it reminded me of the 2019 season, and I put a tweet out about this today. Some of you may have seen it, but it reminded me of the 2019 season when Harrison Phillips went down with an ACL injury in week 3. And up to that point, Harrison Phillips had a great start that year. He was eating up double teams, making space for Ed Oliver, and they were really playing extremely well against the run. And then all of a sudden he goes down, and then from weeks 4 to 8, same situation. The defense really tanked. They were struggling to figure out who they could plug in there on certain downs to stop getting gashed in the run game. You might remember that game they played against Philly, where Philly just ran all over them. It was one of the most frustrating Bills losses I'd seen, in a while. They just couldn't stop anybody. And then all of a sudden, November 5th, week 9, in comes Corey Liuget, who they signed, as a free agent and brought him in. And from that point on, the rest of the season, they finished as a top 5 team in EPA against per play. Were excellent against the run. Liuget had a PFF grade of 76 and change, against the run, which is pretty solid. And just as a whole, he was a player that was that complementary piece that they needed to get everything else, these ripple effects, right? We talk about when you get the right guy in a certain spot in the defense, that really brings out the strengths of everyone else around him. And I think that this signing has the same potential to do that, and maybe then some. This player is of a little bit of a higher caliber than Corey Liuget was, right? And so to have him come in right now, we'll see. He is on the older side of things a little bit, but by all accounts, he looked good on film last year, and it's got the potential to make the kind of impact they need to have ripple effects, come across that entire defensive line. Shutting down the run and getting them into more of these 3rd and long situations that allow them to go to those packages with Jordan Poyer, out there and, creating havoc and causing turnovers.
Yeah. I'm equally excited for the Joseph signing because I think you're trying to bring stability to, like Adam referred to, a banged up line. Losing Daquan Jones is a huge blow, and you're starting to see the effects this season. I think the New England game was debatably their worst defensive game to date this year. Jacksonville close second, although they were able to kind of keep him in check for most of that game. I think the veteran presence of Linval Joseph matters to me a lot. especially when you're working in a room where there's other veterans and you kind of have seen what these guys have been able to do in the league and you've seen what Joseph has been able to do. I still think that, considering the fact that you're obviously not going to have him play a majority of the snaps of the game, he's going to be much more of a rotational element to this defense, that you're going to get that remaining energy out of him in his career. I think he's 35 years old, so obviously he's had a lot of games, a lot of snaps. But having him just be a supplement, someone that, okay, maybe it's not going well in the early half of a game and we need something to kind of take the load off and just break things in the middle of the field, and you have, or I'm sorry, middle of the defensive line, and you have this big player who could eat up a double team, and maybe you have Ed there as well, and Ed's able to kind of work off of that. Like, those are the kind of dynamics that I think this defensive line needed and really valued in Daquan Jones. So to be able to go out into the market, find Linval Joseph, be able to bring him in, I think he's getting paid $3 million. So basically what Dawkins' restructure ended up opening up. Go figure. I think that really provides a much needed element to this defense where you're getting veteran stability in the middle of the line. And I think that not only is that going to benefit your rushing defense, but really just the whole defense. Because if you can plug that hole and prevent teams from running on you, and you're forcing these early downs where maybe they're trying to check the middle of your line, and all of a sudden opposing offenses are ending up in third and longs, and then you end up in a situation, Adam and Thomas, where you end up with like that dime package where you have Poyer in the short field and Rasul Douglas is playing coverage on the back end with maybe Rappin, Hyde, and Benford, and all of a sudden you now have to hold the ball, and the D-line in front of you is Ed Oliver, Von Miller, Gregory Rousseau, Leonard Floyd. Like, if you want Rousseau in a tech spot, I really do believe that this signing could be something that, if he is healthy, if he does have that energy, and if he is able to kind of break the pace up if there is issues, could really benefit this defense in its overall structure for the rest of the year.
Yeah, the other part about that, I think that is incredibly important that Daquan Jones was able to do, is he was able to keep Terrell Bernard clean. Terrell Bernard was able to do his job proficiently because Daquan Jones was so impactful at the line of scrimmage. Without him, I mean, and I don't want to, be too disrespectful, but Jordan Phillips was terrible. He was, quite frankly, it was one of his most uninspiring performances against the New England Patriots. I think they all kind of stepped up a little bit in the Buccaneers game. Still, that second half left a lot to be desired. Having a guy like Linval Joseph, and even if he is playing 20 to 25 snaps a game, is a guy that can not only set the entire intensity of that defensive line, but he can also make sure that the linebackers have the ability to not only diagnose, but react and hit their holes. When people talk about gap integrity, that's what this comes down to. This is where you have these guys having the ability to play, whether it's the run or the pass, because the defensive line holds their ground. Not only that, but if you just look at what Linval Joseph is able to do, not only is he strong, which it was mentioned today by Brandon Bean, that Linval Joseph somehow squats over 600 pounds, which is just absolutely insanity to me. But on top of it, he's a very nimble guy. Even if he is older, he's a guy that can still get moving. So provided he is going to be able to stay healthy, which he's had very minimal to no injuries, which, speaking of, segue, banged up Bills. I'm going to quickly do this. I'm going to throw this in here before we get back to Leonard Fournette. Banged up Bills, who is our guy for all injury-related stuff. He's the one that we go to whenever we have any questions. Dr. Kyle Trimble, he is the best. You can find him on bangedupbills.com, on Twitter, bangedupbills. Got my insight. There is no concerns this week, gentlemen. No concerns for the injury report, which is insane for this week. Obviously, there's some soreness in Josh Allen's arm. In terms of the Bengals, Trey Hendrickson did come back to practice today, so the expectation is he probably will play. So this is a game for the Bills and the Bengals that it is healthy versus healthy. No excuses, no nothing. But that was the one thing that Kyle Trimble did say is with Linval Joseph, he's had almost no injuries for most of his career, just besides being, the normal dinged up or whatnot through the, for the 13-year career he's been around. But, Linval is going to be a guy that you're going to be able to use when it gets down to the goal line, a guy that's going to be able to hold his ground and help the Bills be that stout defense that they have been. And who knows? Maybe we'll get Daquan back and have a old school Pat Williams, Ted Washington defensive line with Daquan Jones and Linval Joseph. But moving on, in terms of Leonard Fournette, I think Leonard Fournette is a fantastic signing for this time of the year to get a guy that probably still has some juice left, a guy that is a big body. One thing that was mentioned, Latavius Murray, even though he has flashed out of 4 appearances within the 1 yard line, he has been 0 for 4 getting into the end zone. That's a big time concern. Big time concern. You need to hit those opportunities whenever they arise. We know that the Bills have struggled in the red zone this year more than ever. I think that's the type of thing that getting a guy like Leonard Fournette, a guy that is way bigger than I really remembered him being, watching him at camp or at practice today was quite awe-inspiring, to say the least, especially with those shorts on. But his ability to not only cause an impact on the run game, but the bigger part is his pass protection. His pass protection is some of the best in terms of running backs. He has graded out over his entire career in the top 10 in pass protection. So his ability to help Josh be that blindside pass protector, potentially, allow a guy like Dawson Knox not to have to sit on the line, that he can help out Spencer Brown on the right-hand side. There's so many different things that Leonard Fournette provides. The number one is he's a guy that you can rely on. He has been very healthy for most of his career. He's a big body when it comes to those games. And I mentioned this with Rasul Douglas. Linval Joseph also falls in this category, but so does Leonard Fournette. Those games against the Bengals, those games in the playoffs, the end of the year when it's tough, those are the guys you want. Those are the guys that are going to be hard-nosed, gritty, the ones that are going to be a pain in the ass to play against. And that's what you want. You want that added edge, that added benefit to play against them.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think one common thread between these, well, I don't want to call it a common thread, but I think that all of these positions are things that benefit you when the weather gets colder. And we have to be mindful of that when you talk about a team that plays in Western New York and also a team that lost in cold weather when it snowed last year, because they were a bit more of a precision finesse type of offense than really a hard-nosed offense. And where I think I have had, some discourse, Adam, Tom, I know you guys have had discourse about this too on Twitter, is about the whole 11 and 12 and all of the kind of flack that's been getting caught with it, is why it is so beneficial to be running out of those personnels and mixing it up and having this alternative style, and then adding in someone who's like a Leonard Fournette or, other hard-nosed types of players, Latavius Murray in the offseason, is you need to be dynamic and able to kind of transition from style if what one thing you're doing isn't working. And I think when you go up against Cincinnati, who's such a mixed bag when it comes to how they cover you, how they attack you on defense, how they do all of these different things with Lou there, I think it's important to have a second identity in the way that you attack defenses. And why I love the Fournette signing, I genuinely don't think he's going to be like a hyper snapped running back. I think reality is Damian Harris is on the IR. We don't know when or if he's coming back. Therefore, why not supplement that third spot with a veteran like Fournette, who's a very good pass blocking back? And when you face teams that might have stack boxes, or if they might be sending a lot of pressure, you could have 21 with guys like Cook and Fournette on the field at the same time. I think in this case, you got guys like Fournette, you got guys like Linval Joseph, Rasul Douglas, guys that you can not only lean on for their position because they're veterans, but also people that when the cold months come around and clutch football has to start being played and physical football has to start being played and opportunistic football has to start being played, each one of these signings or trades are capable of providing that element to the team. And that's why I think it's important.
Yeah. And then, to go off your point there, the other thing that's really interesting about him as a signing is the fact that he actually can catch the ball too, right? He's played well, in the passing game. And so you have a guy in like that that's really pretty obviously on this roster to get carries, inside the 10-yard line and, in very short yardage, gotta have it situations. The fact that you can put him out in the field, really get a team leaning into that tendency, and then all of a sudden have them go out and do something else, catch a pass, whatever. That just is another element that's going to keep teams off balance, make the Bills, even more unpredictable, and just another fun wrinkle in all the things that they're really going to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Now, real quick, I am going to be telling you guys about Underdog Fantasy. Ta-da! Cover One is excited to once again partner with the most dynamic name in fantasy football, Underdog Fantasy. If you have one home league and that one draft each year is not enough for you, then Underdog Fantasy is the thing. All the fun of drafting your own players, but without the waivers and lineup decisions. Best ball drafts allow you to have all the fun of drafting your team, all the chances to win big with none of the week-to-week hassle. Use promo code COVER1 when signing up to make your first deposit, and Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That's $100 in free play if you use promo code COVER1. Even better, Underdog's Best Ball Mania 3 contest is going to make 3 players millionaires. That's right. $10 million in total prizes, $2 million to first, $1 million to second, and $1 million bonus to the team with the most regular season points. 3 chances to win $1 million. Sign up now using promo code COVER1 and take your chance at $1 million today with Underdog Fantasy. Guys, we do have one more person joining us. It's like the Royal Rumble. The client should have like a buzzer. We do have one more guy joining us tonight. He is the on-air producer for the Going Deep podcast, as well as a writer here at Cover One, Mr. Kevin Syracuse. Kev, what's going on, brother?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Hello. We're doing good,
man. Stash is looking fresh.
I know. I was
Solid.
say, the stash in the is that a mullet I see going on? It is.
Oh, dude, I love it. Yeah, now it really is the Royal Rumble, Thomas.
Party in the
Party
back.
in the back.
Got some lettuce back there.
That's
I put in the chat.
That's definitely a choice.
That was Morgan Wallen for Halloween, so I figured I would leave it for a couple days at least. I'm at least going to leave the mustache until December. So.
Oh yeah,
you should leave both forever.
Just need a pair of pit vipers, dude. That's the one thing missing.
Yeah, I like it. It looks really good. Now you just got to do like the shave into the eyebrow. You'll look real cool.
I was kind of paranoid. I was like, maybe I should put a hat on. I don't want it to be like too much of a mullet on air tonight, but
or as Ralph Wilson Sr. calls it, facial winter gear.
There you go.
That being said, guys, let's move into the obvious big time matchup for this week. The Buffalo Bills are playing the Cincinnati Bengals, a very highly anticipated. It was one of the ones you kind of circled on the schedule when it came out earlier this year. One that kind of comes with a ton of storylines, right? Like obviously the Damar Hamlin situation last year was one that captivated the audiences all around the world. Made Damar Hamlin kind of a pseudo celebrity. Has been a talking point about CPR training and preventative health care. And then even more than that, just the matchups between the two of them, all the jockeying between that and the playoff loss. So let's kind of talk about what this matchup is. If you want to go around, and Kevin, we'll start with you. What are your initial, just real quick feelings about this game going into it?
I think I feel pretty confident for the most part. I know the Bengals gave us a lot of problems last year, but I would like to think that the Bills played to their level of their opponent. And as much as that's not a good thing, I think that this week it could be a good thing, because Jordan Phillips said that in the locker room after the Patriots game. He was like, we got to stop playing to the level of our opponent. But if you look at it on the bright side, you say, okay, well, Cincinnati's starting to get healthy. They're starting to click. So maybe that means our MO is starting to push a little bit here. And I think that the Bills kind of refound themselves last week, going back to 11 personnel and getting more aggressive and unleashing Josh Allen. So as much as I'm worried about this game, because I think this is a huge matchup, obviously, I am still pretty confident.
Yeah, I think I echo Kevin's sentiments there. They obviously had their fits with them last year, but let's be honest, these teams are two completely different teams than what they were last year as well. I tend to think people, overvalue or undervalue teams based on their previous game rather than looking at the big picture. And, Cincinnati certainly looks scary to the fan base coming off of that monster win that they just had over San Francisco. But let's not forget they're the same team that scored 17 points against Seattle the week before. And, Seattle's defense has improved this season, but they're not barn burners by any stretch. The Bills certainly seem to be coming into their own on offense. This past week was a week that they really looked good and getting the ball spread around. The additional use of Dalton Kincaid, of Khalil Shakir. There are a lot less of those kind of first read plays going to Stephon Diggs. The ball was really getting moved around pretty nicely. And so, the second that I saw the line hit +3 Bills, I hammered it because I think that the people are crazy to, be giving the Bills that many points against, a team like this that really, I think that they're every bit as good as and, should have an opportunity to come home with the W on Sunday.
Yeah, I am cautiously optimistic. I do think that I'm one of those, I'm going to say the cliche, any given Sunday exists for a reason. Parity exists for a reason. I don't sleep on anybody, and Cincinnati is certainly not a team that I would. I have said from the start of the year that as long as Burrow heals up, that team will be back to where they should be. And lo and behold, here they are. They just beat a very good Niners team, and they look like they want to continue that trend. However, I have a couple reasons for optimism. I can get more in detail if we talk more about just like the back and forth with offense and defense. But there is one stat. I remember when Kevin Masseri posted this on Twitter, but there's one thing deeper than it, and it's the Bills' record against teams and their last faced and what their record is the next time they faced them. And for the playoffs, the Bills have not lost in a playoff rematch game. They have played the Jacksonville Jaguars after 2017-18 season in 2018, and they won that game. They played the Houston Texans for the first time since their playoff game in 2021, whooped them. Then the Chiefs twice and beat them both times. Now you have Cincinnati, and this is a playoff rematch, and McDermott's record favors the Bills in that regard. I am very excited to watch it because I do think that the team they are facing now, while still very good, matches up better as far as what advantages you can give to Buffalo offensively and defensively than they did last season. And also, while we are dealing with a litany of injuries, I do think that the Bills are, one, getting the mini bye and the opportunity to prepare and adjust, as well as some of the signings that, even though they might not be playing a ton of snaps, could still contribute. Lead me to be cautiously optimistic that this can be a Bills victory on Sunday, and I certainly am hoping for one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what all three of you said. I think this game is just a matchup that, these guys are all in their 20s, right? Except for a couple of them, like Linval Joseph, who apparently is like my age. But they all know social media. They all know what's going on. They've all heard the noise. Josh Allen knows what's been said. And they all feel what happened from that playoff game. So don't get it twisted. These guys know what's at stake. They know that there is a lot of talking points, a lot of narratives built in to this matchup that they want to completely wipe away. They want to that taste in their mouth. Stephon Diggs. I mean, gosh, how long did we sit there thinking Stephon Diggs wanted out of Buffalo from the images of Stephon Diggs yelling at Josh on the sideline? You know they want this game. You know they want to silence every critic has said that this team cannot compete with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this game is going to be spicy. There's going to be some serious intensity going in. But let's talk about a couple things. First off, Bills offense versus the Bengals defense. Joe, if you want to get us started in regards to the Bills offense versus the Bengals defense, kind of what are your thoughts? And we could do real, kind of round robin real quick, but what do you think are the opportunities for this matchup?
Yeah, so again, the Bengals throw a myriad of things at you, and it's so tough to really face that defense because the way they look pre-snap and post-snap can drastically differ on a moment's notice. And, they're known for those 3-man rushes with a really effective defensive line and sending everyone back into coverage. So really the one thing that I'm going to be paying attention to, because it seems that they've been upping it more in the recent weeks, and I'd like them to do it again, is rely on that RPO, man. Threaten them. Because the way I see it is if you can kind of get that look pre-snap that you want, and you have this in your arsenal, and then all of a sudden 8 men are back in coverage, and you feel like with Cook, you can get enough push to get some space up front to maybe on early downs get a big run. I think that's a huge matchup advantage for the Bills. I think they're very good at running it. I think Allen is one of the best RPO quarterbacks in the league. And I think as long as he's reading things successfully at the line of scrimmage in this game, then I really do believe that the Bengals would have to adjust and be threatened by the Bills' running attack, something that they didn't really have the last time they played them. So if you can pull these RPOs off and punch them in the mouth if they drop back into coverage with speedy back like Cook, or if you want to mix it up with Murray for a more power style where you're actually able to kind of get push on their defensive line, I think that is going to be a huge benefit to the Bills. You're going to force Lou to try to bring more people up and stay in the box. And I think once you start seeing that, Allen will pick it apart. And I think that is what you're trying to get, really, when you're facing a team that you just lost to in the playoffs. So that's what I'm expecting to see from the offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think, looking at the RPOs, especially on the early downs, is a good idea. Keeping them in conflict. One thing looking at the Bengals defense is like their success rates, for example, against the run and the pass. They're actually, in a success rate on early downs, they're one of the better teams, against the rush. However, if you have that option to come at them, you can kind of say, okay, how are things looking, and put it in Josh's hands and let him decide. Is a run look here advantageous, or is a pass look here advantageous? On early downs, they're actually not very good at all against the pass. So by mixing in the RPO, kind of keeping them off balance, I think that this needs to be a game plan where, especially on, first and second down, if they're going to use the run game, it needs to be in RPOs. And they actually need to be slinging the ball a lot on those earlier downs to, really keep them off balance, challenge them, and try to get in more situations where when you're looking at second and third down, you're looking at, second and 3, second and 2, and not so much these, second and 8 situations where, things just become a little bit more obvious. That to me is the biggest key for the Bills offense going into this one.
Yeah, I think the Bills need to do what the Bengals did to the Bills last year in the playoffs, and that's take what the defense gives them and take the underneath, because if you remember, the Bills offense was just putrid that game, and they were just trying to be so aggressive, and they were down by, 17 points, and it's like they thought that they could get an 18-point play, and it's like, no, right. you have to go for it. You have to chip away at it. So I would like to see the Bills continue on with what they did last week, at least for the first 3 quarters versus the Buccaneers. And I loved how they used Gabe Davis in more ways than one, where it wasn't just, hey, Gabe, can you run down that way vertically? It was like, hey, run 5 yards, and we're going to use you as a possession type receiver. And what they did with Kincaid and Khalil Shakir, I mean, we could have a separate conversation about Shakir potentially solidifying himself as the wide receiver 3 on this team moving forward, at least kind of platooning with Kincaid in the slot. But I think those are the guys that I'm looking forward to watching here and seeing if the Bills can continue on with that. And I'm going to add James Cook into that as well, because I think they could definitely exploit that matchup and maybe use Cook in the passing game. I know that's not something that we've seen, but games like this are games where you can kind of, I don't want to say empty the playbook, but you can spice it up a little bit.
I do want to speak on this because I don't want to say it annoys me, but I do want to be very clear. I don't think the Bengals are a bad matchup. In fact, I'm not sure where that entire narrative comes from, because there is 0 teams in the NFL that are a bad matchup for any team in the NFL, period. 3 weeks ago, the 49ers were the unquestioned best team in the NFL. Nobody could beat them. They were going to be the NFC's, delegate for the Super Bowl. Now, I don't know what's going on. That team is an absolute tire fire. The Dolphins, prior to playing us 3 weeks ago, were the best team in the NFL, and then we whooped them up and down the sidewalk. There are so many different things that happen week by week that Bengals game in the playoffs is, for me, a throwaway. It's an anomaly. It's at the end of a season where everything and anything that could have had happened to the Buffalo Bills did. The Bills were gutted on not only their roster with injuries, but mentally not only fatigued, but plagued beyond measure. And I don't want to go through because I've said it a million times. That is a one-game sample size, because I'm sorry, I will not use the Damar Hamlin game as a sample of 7 minutes as to why the Bills were or were not going to win that game. That situation, it was not on the Will. Come on, bro.
Yeah,
it was 7 minutes. It was 2 series. There was nothing happened. There's no, you don't know what was going to happen. You're not Nostradamus. None of us are. Until they do it. If they do it, okay, let me say this, and I will put my money where my mouth is. If the Bills have the same output against the Bengals on this Sunday night, I will donate $50 to whatever Will's charity of choice is. I guarantee you it'll be a close game, and it will not be a beatdown. This Bills team is a good matchup. The only difference is that, again, the Bills have a ton of injuries, but I think they have supplemented it with a depth that is unmatched across the NFL. Brandon Beane continually tries to pivot and find ways to put the best possible pieces in place. In regards to this with the Bills offense, Kevin, I love what you said. Adam, Joe, I agree emphatically. I think this Bills team has so many different pieces they can go ahead and kind of deploy against any team. Getting a guy like Dalton Kincaid involved provides such a mismatch. His ability to use leverage against his team because of his speed, his size, his ability to stretch and push the middle of the field is going to be annoying for Lou Anarumo to try to figure out. On top of that, the biggest thing is the running game. The running game is something we did not have against the Bengals, period. When you look at the Bengals, when we've played them, we had no ability because, I'm sorry, Devin Singletary didn't scare a goddamn person, period. Love Devin, nice guy, great heart, all that stuff. Guy was not fast and could not bowl anybody over. James Cook has the speed to break it. Latavius Murray and potentially Leonard Fournette have the ability to put you on your ass. The running offense for the Bills is something that they did not have to deal with. It sets up the play action. Josh Allen is by far one of top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL when play action is utilized. I don't think this matchup is nearly a one-sided affair, as people will say. But let's go into the other side of this. Ladies and gentlemen, since I'm all sorts, let's talk about the Bengals' vaunted offense against the Bills' defense. Kevin, let's start with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something to Will's point, and that was a perfect segue because I figured we'd be talking about the Bills' defense versus the Bengals' offense. And to his point, with the same script, I don't want to get into that game as a whole and what could have happened with what we know that did happen. But I think the general viewpoint here is that I want to see this Bills defense be way more aggressive than they were last year, because there was that infamous picture that came on afterwards where it was 3rd and 3 and our DBs are 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and saying, oh, you can get the first down, bend but don't break, work your way down the field, but we're going to tighten up once we're in the red zone. And I think what Will was trying to say was, before the Hamlin incident, the Bengals walked down the field on that first series, and they were starting to right before Damar got hurt. So, again, I don't want to get into that game too much, but the general overviewing point here is that I want to see Sean McDermott call an aggressive defense and mix it up a little bit. And I loved what they did against Miami, where they were having, a 4-man rush, but coming from different areas, whether it was a linebacker, another defensive lineman, or who else did they have blitzing? Like Taron Johnson at times.
Everybody.
So, like everyone from everywhere. So
yeah.
I liked how they were mixing it up. So I would like to see McDermott do that. Maybe we'll see Poyer play a little bit of linebacker, just like disguising some coverages, doing some different things, because the last game against the Bengals was very laid back when it should have been the exact opposite. It's the playoffs. Get up on the line of scrimmage. So that's my first point here about the Bills defense on Sunday night.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I mean, the biggest change and the biggest difference really in all this is that there's somebody else completely different calling this defense, right? And we've seen the way McDermott's defense varies from what it was last year and in years prior, in terms of the way that he's using these three safety sets and getting Jordan Poyer underneath. And, the one thing that was really challenging for them last year was, of course, Daquan Jones suddenly not being available for that game, not really having good solutions in the run game. Really, they were kind of left on ice skates a little bit heading into that game. But now they seem to have some stuff figured out. Last week was a little bit of a step in the right direction. And, I think they know what to plan for. So I'm confident. I think they've got the right guys to, be in coverage and get the job done. And, we'll see how it shakes out at the end of the day.
Yeah, First and foremost, I agree with that, Adam. Kevin, I'm glad you brought the Miami game because that's exactly what I was going to say. I think when you're talking about how Sean McDermott does actually attack the Bengals offense, it's going to be the same script. They predicated on getting pressure, making Tua hold the ball, and trying to take away the best receiver. So they kept Tyreek Hill relatively in check in that game. Waddle had a couple yards. Obviously, there were touchdowns from some other players. I think Berrios had one in that game as well. But the game plan was executed nearly to perfection. It took some time to kind of work in. Eventually, they start pulling away because the offense was keeping pace. I think that same exact script is what you're throwing at Cincinnati because Joe Burrow, he's timing, he's precision, he could see the field incredibly well, and he has dangerous playmakers. What you need to do as a defense is first and foremost, make sure that you make that man uncomfortable any opportunity you can get. To start, the D tackles need to keep that trend going from the Tampa game. Like you just said, Adam, they need to keep that performance rolling, shut Mixon down, and don't allow any momentum on the ground. If you are able to do that, I think then Sean McDermott's use of simulated pressure, of creepers, of anything you want to throw at them can be successful. I don't think he's going to send more than 5 too often in this game because Joe Burrow, again, he's timing, he's precision, he's quick. He'll get that ball out. There will be someone open. I don't want to run that risk. But what I will say about this Bengals offense is while I do think their receiving core got a smidge deeper because Yoshi Voss has had a string of a couple pretty solid games for them, their tight end room did not. They do not have Hayden Hurst anymore. They are relying on Irv Smith Jr., who I've seen Bengal fans complain about in ample amounts. If you single out and shut down their running attack and you are forced to rely on your boundary receivers who, by the grace of God, they are incredible. I am not trying to make this statement anything negative about Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, or their slot Tyler Boyd, anything like that. But if you keep this offense one-dimensional and you are forcing Joe Burrow to work the boundaries, I think the Bills defense has a great game because if you are not having any sort of guessing game pre-snap and you know that you're able to handle Mixon and that Joe Burrow is struggling with his timing and his rhythm and all of these different components, that's where I think the advantage will go to Buffalo because one, now we don't have to worry about, tight end matchups with our linebackers. I think we have that covered, but I do believe that the way McDermott throws pressure and how he threw it at Miami is what he's going to do to Cincinnati. And I think it is going to be effective, but it's up to the Bills offense to keep the pace on their end against Lou's stubborn defense if they want to really have this game plan work.
Yeah, I think the one thing that, in regards to that Bengals game in the playoffs that I didn't quite understand and I've never really agreed with is playing off man in the snow. Not, allowing them to kind of dictate the route and not chipping them, not causing them to stop their timing, especially when the footing is at its worst, will never make sense to me, especially even more so in a timing-based offense. You see all the time when you're playing the Dolphins, you want to get to off of his read as quickly as possible. If you can get the wide receiver from getting to a spot where he expects him to be, that's what you want in this offense. Joe Burrow, like you guys have said, number 3 in the NFL in timing in terms of getting the ball out the fastest. You got to be able to disrupt things. I was talking to Zim. He's a big Bills fan, big Bengals fan. He was saying it himself, you want to win this game, you have to get to Burrow. It's hard to do, but if you can, you will cause them to have issues throughout the day. I think that's going to be big for this Bills defense. I think the big thing is, to be completely frank, you just have to be disciplined. You have to stay within yourself. I think Christian Benford and Dane Jackson they're going to have to play damn near perfect football. I mean, realistically, this is the type of team with this type of horsepower. You have to be a sound football team. You need Terrell Bernard to step up. Splash plays need to happen. If you can get turnovers, that's going to make this game a completely different outlook. I think it's just one of those things that from the first whistle to the last, you need to make sure you are playing lights out football. And like you were saying, I think potentially having Jordan Poyer up at the line, having him as more of a, kind of a will linebacker, and having both Rap and Hyde kind of sitting back, you can cause so many issues. You can give it super creative, having creeper pressures, having simulated pressures, just having the ability to make Joe Burrow keep his peripheral vision on a Bills defender that'll get inside his head all day long. So I think that's going to be important. Let's quickly hurry on. We're going to finish this show up. We have a couple more quick things. Who is, and Joe, we'll start with you real quick. Go round robin real quick. Who is your star of the game? Who is the guy that you think for the Buffalo Bills would be the reason this Bills team pulls off the victory?
Jordan Poyer. I think, again, the dime look and how they're running out of it, and the fact that Jordan Poyer can blitz is the X factor into how McDermott can get creative, like you alluded to. I think Jordan Poyer comes up with a big play, and his presence in that position is what ultimately allows the defense to hit home more often than it should if you had Dorian Williams starting. So I'm going to pick him.
I'm copping out. It's Josh Allen, man. We got the second best quarterback, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL. He's playing at an MVP level. I've been saying this nonstop. I think that this is Josh Allen's best season to date. I know that things haven't looked great for the offense, at all times, but if you just isolate the way that Josh Allen has played this season, I think he's been incredible. He's leading the league in completion percentage over expected. He's playing in a way that he's calm and confident inside the pocket. We really have not seen Sugar High Josh at all, except for week 1 of the season. A lot of people talking about this low positive thing like it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. He has been in the zone, steady, calm, ready to do what it takes to win football games, get the ball where it needs to go. Josh Allen's going to be the reason that they win this game on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to watching it happen.
I'm going to give 2, one on offense and one on defense. My first answer is Terrell Bernard. I think he is going to be, the quote-unquote star of this game, because to our point about how the Bills defense is going to play against the Bengals offense, I think we kind of touched on this. We didn't really go in depth, but Cincinnati didn't do anything crazy in that playoff game last year. They literally just dumped it underneath, hit, shallow crossers, slants, just they simplified it, literally. And the Bills still had no answers. So I think that maybe having Terrell Bernard over Tremaine Edmonds, and this isn't to say anything against Edmonds or to, go down that rabbit hole, but I just think that Bernard's athleticism in the middle of the field could change a lot of things. And maybe if they sprinkle in Dorian Williams, and again, we're talking about Jordan Poyer coming down to play a little bit. I think this game is going to come down to the middle of the field. As much as we say it's going to come down to, those air yards with Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, I think underrated is going to be that middle part of the field. So my star of the game on defense is Terrell Bernard. And then to that same point on offense, I'm going to go Dalton Kincaid for all the reasons that we talked about on offense and how to attack this Bengals defense.
Mine for this is Coach McDermott. Coach McDermott having the ability, I kind of jumped back and forth, and I thought, well, maybe Dorsey should be important. I think this Bills team, and I think Josh Allen on his own, is good enough to carry with or without a piss-poor offensive game plan, and I don't think Dorsey's been that bad. I think the narrative around Dorsey's been kind of amplified. I think if Sean McDermott can come up with a game plan to cause Burrow and that offense fits, I think the Bills have a very legitimate pathway to getting that victory. I think it all stems from being able to shut Joe Burrow down, not allowing them to go. I mean, the last 2 games, Joe Burrow has started off the game 17 for 17 in both games. He is very, very talented. He's very lethal, super accurate. He's when they call him Joe Cool, it's for a reason. He knows how to get that game not only going, but going in rhythm. So if you can get Sean McDermott and that defense playing to the point where they're able to keep Joe Burrow in check, I think this is a Bills victory at the end of the day. I still think it's going to be a close game, but I think that's the potential way. Finally, gentlemen, let's end it this way real quick. What is your prediction?
Mm-hmm. Who wants to take the lead on this one? Because I'm going to
go
with
first because I already made my prediction Tuesday night on the Going Deep podcast. So I'm going to stay consistent with what I said, and I have Buffalo winning 37-34. I think, like you were saying, Thomas, it is going to be back and forth. I really don't see this being another blowout, and I would like to remain confident, and I think that the Bills got a boost with Rasul Douglas and Linval Joseph and Leonard Fournette, and I think that they essentially reinvented themselves. And do we know Quentin Morris' status?
He was a full practice today.
Okay, so maybe a little bit more 12 personnel sprinkled in with the 11 personnel. Now the Bills have multiple ways to attack these teams. And one other thing that I want to say real quick is we've kind of reached that point in the season where it's time to pay attention to the standings and the conference records and the division records. And something I said on the Going Deep podcast the other night was the Bills are going to have to win one or two games now that maybe at the beginning of the year we thought they were going to lose because they lost one or two games that we thought they should have won. So whether that's the Jets, Jags, or Patriots, I mean, we can all agree that they should have beat the Patriots, and then take your pick between Jacksonville and the Jets. Either way, one or two games, the Bills are going to have to flip now. So I think one of those games is going to start this Sunday night, and then take your pick between Kansas City, Philadelphia, Dallas, maybe even the Chargers. But yeah, this is the huge turning point. Not only is it the flip of the calendar that it's November now, but we're starting to hit that stretch.
Yeah, I also agree. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think we're going to see a lot of offense in this one, back and forth. I'm going to pick the Bills to win this one 35-29, and I think they're going to do it on the final drive of the game. It should be a great test, great matchup. Both these teams obviously need this game if they want to stay in contention for, the number one seed in the AFC. So it has huge ramifications, for that reason. But I really like the Bills' chances. I think that there are many areas that they're much improved from last season. I expect them to go in and take this game.
I am going to take a page out of Pro Ant's book, and that is not give you a score prediction. What I will say is I do think it is actually going to be much more of a defensive matchup between both teams, where I foresee it being low scoring, something in the 20s to teens or maybe double 20s, but I don't see it being a barn burner as much, and I will not give you my score. You can't make me. It's bitten me in the ass 2 weeks in a row. I refuse to do it. Thanks.
Not happy with you, Joseph. So that being said, guys, before I give you my prediction, whatever I'm going to say, make sure you guys hit a thumbs up. Definitely do appreciate that. If you liked the show, please go ahead and share this. It is our lifeblood, sharing this content, letting people know. If you have a friend or a family member that loves the Bills, let them know about us. Let them know about this show. Share this. Tell them to watch it. Tell them to listen to it on Spotify. It truly does make a difference. It helps me pay for diapers. I appreciate that. Diapers are goddamn expensive for a 9-month-old. So that being said, I think this is going to be a game. I did say it's going to be very, very close. I think it's going to be something like 38-27. I think the Bills are they're gonna win, and then at the end just kind of close it out, whether it's a pick six or fumble and then get a late field goal, something to put the game away to the point where it's just out of reach. I think this Bills team, I truly I believe the couple stretch, and that you've seen teams like the Chiefs did this last year. They did it back when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They went through stretches where things just don't go right. It's a long season. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. The Bills went through some tough patches, man. They were injuries, implosions, a lot of stuff that happens. I think this Bills team is coming out the other side of that slump. They're finding themselves. They're getting into a rhythm. The offensive playbook under Dorsey is starting to come along. There's just so many parts and pieces to this team. I think that they're trying to put into place, and I think they're coming together eventually and slowly. I think this is a team that can stand toe-to-toe with the Bengals. I think they can go toe-to-toe with any team in the NFL, bar none. Josh Allen is that damn good. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Right now, he is odds on in the top 2 for MVP voting with Tua Tagovailoa. I can never say his last name. I think it's going to be a big time matchup. I'm super excited. I think you guys should all be very, very excited. That being said, before I close this thing out, gentlemen, why don't you go around and tell people where you can find them?
Well, you can find me every Saturday live at 11 a.m. I host a show called Under Review. It is a show that talks about, shockingly, the Buffalo Bills. And this weekend my guest will be Josh McCarty from Bills Chat. Always a great guest. We're going to have a really good talk about some of our pickups as well as the matchup itself. So for all 106, 101, whatever it is in there, Saturday, 11 a.m., Cover One YouTube channel. Come hang out.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter. My handle's right there in the bottom corner. I'm the film coordinator for Cover One. I don't do my own show. I just mooch off everybody else here. But you will find on my feed, as you know, because I'm the film coordinator, oftentimes I'm sharing clips or screenshots from things that I find interesting in that week's games. I'm also, you know, a bit of a stats buff, so I'm constantly looking at this stuff and finding you know, information that I think you know, adds some you know, different discourse and conversation to what happened in that previous week's game. So give me a follow there if you want to follow along. Try to keep it light, and you know, appreciate you guys having me on.
And like I already said, I'm with the Going Deep podcast on Tuesday nights, so we go live at 7 o'clock. And you can find me on Twitter at Kevin_Syracuse. I think that's my Instagram too. I don't even know. But if you want to find me on Instagram or Facebook, it's just Kevin Syracuse. It should pop up. I get confused, guys. I think Snapchat, I put the dot in there. This one, I have the underscore. But either way, just search my name. And
add Kevin on Snapchat.
Yeah, what did I just start?
You should totally do it. Will, I truly do apologize if I was a little too spicy tonight for you. I get very heated when we talk about this matchup because I think there's so many absolutely asinine narratives based around these two teams, especially the Buffalo Bills, who are way better than people like to give them credit for. But I apologize. My sincerest apologies, and I will try to be better. I'm really not good at it, but I will try. That being said, guys, I do appreciate you tuning in tonight to Buffalo Late Night here on Cover One. You can find us on Cover One's YouTube channel. Obviously, you're here. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification button. Let you know next time we are live. You can also check out all of our work at cover1.net. We got some amazing writers. This is one of them. Do some really, really good stuff. They bring out some really, really good content. Yeah.
Couldn't figure it
make
out.
Sure you
I can never do this.
Make sure you check out our website, all of our great content. We do truly appreciate it. Like I said, sign up for Cover One Pass. Really good stuff in there as well. But as always, truly do thank you for tuning in and hanging out. The chat was fantastic. You guys were lovely. Jessica Tennis, no, Tre'Davious White will still be here next year, I promise you. For all of us here at Cover One, I will see you guys here next Thursday night for another edition, splendid excitement of Buffalo Late Night here on Cover One, 7 p.m. Guys, I love you. We'll see you next week. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
The Bills make me wanna.